there, Star Wars collectors, and welcome to another Bossk Bounty video, and welcome to episode 199 of Ask Bossk Bounty. This is the weekly Q&A series that drops every Sunday, where I take your questions from the comment section below and do my best to answer them. Now, I would usually say that if you do have a question for next week's episode, leave it in the comments section below. However, the next episode of Ask Bossk Bounty will be episode 200, and I plan to do that as a live stream. I'm not 100% sure when I'm going to be doing that. Of course, I do have live streams going on at the moment for the last figure standing, so it's a bit difficult when I'm going to be fitting that in. However, I still want you to leave your questions in the comment section below, just in case I do pre-record that video. And even if I don't, and I do it as a live stream, then I will answer those questions live by reading out the comments, as well as answering questions from you guys in the chat of that live stream. So either way, it'll be pretty awesome. So leave your questions in the comment section for this video as normal. I want to say a big thank you to Aqualish Doug. He sent me a very kind gift. It was a advent calendar for my son. They're like a musical Star Wars advent calendar, which is awesome, and also a calendar for 2024 for me to put up in my room. Unfortunately, I don't have them here with me right now to show you because the calendar is actually in my son's room and I can't get in there at the moment. But I did want to say a huge thank you to Aqualish Doug for the kind gift. It is much appreciated, buddy. So thank you so much. Now, with all that being said, if you do happen to enjoy this video, hit the like button down below. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. And let's get on to the first question. Ryan P57 says, "Hey Tim, great video as always. With each new TVC reveal, VC 271 gets a bit further and further away. Have you heard anything from Hasbro about plans to fill the empty numbering slot, or will it go the route of VC 188 and sit vacant for a few years?" This is a question that I'm going to be asking the Hasbro team at the next Q&A, which is on Tuesday. Hopefully I will have that video out for you on the evening of Tuesday, and you'll be able to see what answer they give us from there. But I won't be able to answer it right now because it's just something that I don't know. Satisfierism says, question for next week: do you think Hasbro would ever re-release definitive figures which are now only available on the second-hand market for people who have missed out on them? For example, Leia Boushh, Gamorrean Guard, Emperor's Royal Guard, Lando Skiff Guard, various bounty hunters and canteen aliens, or are they mainly focused on just releasing new figures? Well, I think in the main they are interested in releasing new figures, but they do repacks, they do reissues. Since the vintage collection has come back, they have had various waves of reissues. In fact, a couple of the ones that you do mention there have been reissued. The Gamorrean Guard, I think that was reissued back in 2018, and the Emperor's Royal Guard, maybe even only a couple of years ago now. So they do that kind of thing, and it is my understanding that they're not going to stop that. I mean, I think even just last year we got like Weequay for the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi. There was a couple of others as well that we got. Nien Nunb was another one. So they do that, and I don't think they're going to be stopping. So just you have to keep your eye out and see which ones they reissue next year. Stephen Malinak says, "Happy holidays to you and yours, Tim. Question for next week. One of the biggest complaints with recent TVC releases is the pathetic peg holes. Other lines back in the day included a figure stand as a pack-in. Do you think Hasbro would consider including a figure stand with TVC releases that is designed for the newer peg holes? It would be cheap for them to do and would also add value for us loose collectors. And why not control the market rather than making us look to other suppliers whose stands are hit and miss for the newer figures? Thanks." I think there's two issues here with this. Is one, not all figures can stand on a peg because of the, as you say, their pathetic peg holes. So, you know, they're going to be making a rod for their own back by doing that anyway. You know, here's a stand for the figure provided in the pack, but unfortunately your figure won't stand on that anyway because it's got rubbish peg holes. So there's that issue. And also I think providing a stand in a TVC packaging would kind of like ruin the aesthetics of the card. If you had like a, you know, either like a grey or a black stand behind the figure, it's going to kind of ruin that panel a little bit. So I'm not really too sure if they'd be able to do that. Of course, it worked with things like the Saga collection and other lines, but with TVC, I just think, you know, it'll ruin the aesthetic of the figure in the bubble. Zhao Thomas 1904 says, "When will we get Gar Saxon in the vintage collection?" Yeah, this is definitely one that I feel that they could do quite easily, in my opinion, with the amount of Mandalorians and the Super Commandos and all those other figures that we've had. I'm sure there's enough tooling that they could take to make Gar Saxon. I don't think he would be too dissimilar to Pre Vizsla that we have here. I had a quick look online to see exactly what he looked like, and he has something going on with his shoulders. I think it's for his cape, a little bit different. So maybe there'd have to be some slight retooling there. But I think that's quite an easy one for them to do. When they'll do that, I really don't know. We had to wait quite a long time for Pre-Vizsla, didn't we? So, but you know, now that tooling's there, maybe it's an easier one for them to do. P Diddy 82 says, great video as always. Question for next week. Just started rewatching The Mandalorian season 3, and it made me think that there are quite a few mid-sized spacecraft in Disney Plus shows that have amazing potential to be TVC vehicles. Bo-Katan's Gauntlet, the Pirate Snub Fighter, the Spider Tank, TIE Interceptor and Bomber, all Mando season 3. Plus you have other D Plus shows like Ahsoka with the T6 Jedi Shuttle, New Republic E-Wing, Shin Hati's Starfighter, and or with Luthen's very cool ship. Do you think there's any chance of getting mid-sized TVC vehicles in the future which are not HasLabs, or are the vehicle days in TVC over? No, I don't think they're over. I think if you look at the M1 Starfighter, that's definitely a lesson learnt for Hasbro, that if you put a popular vehicle out there, then it will sell. I think it did really, really well for them. And hopefully that spurs them on to do even more vehicles. I would say that some of the ones that you've mentioned there perhaps aren't mid-sized. We wouldn't be able to get away with, say, like Bo-Katan's Gauntlet or Luthen's ship. Certainly not the T6 Jedi Shuttle either. That is actually quite a large vehicle of Ahsoka's. But some of the others there that you've mentioned, like the E-Wing and Shin Hati's Starfighter, which I thought looked awesome. What a great design that was. I would actually love for them to do that in the vintage collection. As I said before, the N1 was a success, so hopefully, you know, we'll see more of that sort of thing in the future. Michael Seng says, question for next week, when will they make a TVC Phase 1 red or yellow clone trooper? They have already made the TVC Phase 1 blue and green clone trooper. They have. I've got them here. I think this is the lieutenant and this is the sergeant, I think it is. So the red one and the yellow one, maybe one of them's like a captain or something. People will be able to correct me in the comment section below, I'm sure. I think, hopefully, what I'm hoping is that it's going to be the same what they've done with the Phase 2. So we've got the all-white Phase 2 on an Andor card back, and then since then we've got the 212 pack, and they're also doing that other pack there from the Clone Wars, where you've got the 332nd, you've got one 501st, and then the two plain white. They're going to have newly sculpted helmets that aren't removable, so they're much more in scale. So I'm hoping that now we're going to be getting that Phase 1 clone trooper in the wave with Dooku. Then maybe after that they'll follow it up with some army builder packs. And what I would love them to do is to have the 4 coloured like officers or whatever in that pack. So you have the blue, the green, the red and the yellow all in one pack. That would be awesome. It's not something that I would buy multiples and multiples of, like I would if it was just like 5 plain white Phase 1 clone troopers, or 5 501st, for example, with the Phase 2. But it's something that I'd definitely buy a couple of to have like as squad leaders and things like that. And I think that'd be a good way of doing it with the new sculpt, with the new helmet, you know, get rid of these skinny clones and whatever. So hopefully we'll see them do that. I can't really see them just giving us a white Phase 1 clone trooper and being done with it. I think they will release more of those, and I think the 4-pack is kind of like the perfect way to do it. Channel member Carl Wilson says, great episode, Tim. Question for next week. Will we ever see Peli Motto figure? Now we have the Razor Crest and N1 from Book of Boba Fett. Surely we need Peli and her pit droids. Thanks. It's definitely something that we need. I really don't know when they're going to get round to that one. I do worry about this one, to be honest, that it's going to be kind of like a Season 1 Grief Karga or the Client type figure, where it's, you know, a reasonably important character. You know, they're in quite a few episodes, but they just don't do a figure for it. I've got a feeling Peli might be one of those. It'd be a shame because I would want her in the line. But yeah, I don't know. I just get this feeling that she might be, yeah, as I say, like a Grief Karga, and we just won't get her, basically. Hiya, how are ya? 6436 says, question for next week. Are you concerned about the Pipeline Jango's helmet? Do you think they learned their lesson early enough with Axe Woves and Sabine Wren? I'm concerned with Jango not being bald that they will do an oversized removable helmet. Yeah, I guess that is a bit of concern. I think they are bringing out another Axe Woves, aren't they? And I sense that they're going to fix that issue with that helmet and make it a swappable head, like they did with Bo-Katan and her friend as well, which I'm forgetting her name right now. But we've got Pre-Vizsla here, who I think the helmet is perfectly in scale. As you said, he does have a bald head, doesn't he? Unlike Jango. So I'm hoping that they either get it right with the removable helmet, or they just do a swappable head. So yeah, I guess I am a little bit concerned, but I think maybe they may have had the sort of feedback from the Axe Woves specifically, in time to make sure that that doesn't happen again with that figure. But we'll have to wait and see. Multiverse Toys says, "Hey Tim, fantastic video as always. Question for next week. How would you feel if Hasbro made a TVC IG-12 with Grogu sculpted into an IG-11 and non-removable, kind of like the pouch with Grogu inside from the Scout Bike set? This seems like the only logical way of producing that figure, given that IG-11 is such a slim figure and Hasbro could reuse some of the existing tooling. Also, would you prefer Hasbro to release the IG-12 version or IG-11 Navarro Marshall version of this character from season 3? I'd prefer both of them, to be honest, but in terms of the original question there, yeah, I mean, this might not go down too well with some people watching, but I would rather the figure of Grogu be sculpted in there and non-removable. I don't want them to make IG-11 too thick, you know, as you say, he is a slim figure. And I also wouldn't want them to make Grogu an even smaller figure, like out of scale, so that he can fit in there and be removed and things like that. I think the logical thing to do is to sculpt him in there, have him holding the little gear sticks, and then, you know, the figure is the figure then, basically. I think that's probably the best way of doing it, and I hope they do make that figure because I thought it was pretty awesome. But as I say, I would like them to do both. Both of those would be pretty cool. Channel member Modal Node says, question for next week. With the recent release of the new Admiral Motti figure, do you think Hasbro could be planning a Death Star conference room playset? And if they were to release one, how would they go about releasing the more obscure officers from that scene? Presumably Hasbro are cautious of putting Seward Cass and General Romedy on cards if they don't have the confidence to release Motti on one. Would love to hear your thoughts and whether it would be something you would be interested in. Always interested in things like that with Imperials. I love the Imperial officer. I love what they've done with that sculpt. And yeah, there's countless ones that I would like them to do. I do agree with what you're saying there. I think some of the more obscure ones definitely wouldn't be able to be on a card back. I think they'd have to be in some kind of playset, or, you know, one of those Army Builder 4-packs, or maybe a 7-pack like the Modal Nodes. No pun intended with your name there, buddy. But I think that's probably the way to go. Is it something they're planning on? I don't know. I hope it is. Because I would like to make that scene with the briefing room. Obviously, we had them before in the Saga line in that set. So maybe they could take influence from something like that and, you know, do a TVC version of that. Sama Bazza says, "Hi Tim, love the videos. Question for next week. The polls are a good way of generating community interest, and Hasbro has stated that they do keep an eye on the results. Do you think it would be beneficial to do media-specific top 10, top 6 type polls, since Hasbro release an average of 4 to 6 figures per wave? Maybe this will help Hasbro know which characters people want from each media source. For example, Andor, The Phantom Menace, A New Hope, Knights of the Old Republic, and so on. Maybe this will even encourage Hasbro to do themed waves rather than the splattering we get right now. Your thoughts?" Yeah, so I'll come on to that in a second. I think, first of all, you know, to do that many polls it's a lot of work, basically. I know that, you know, the last figure standing that we're doing at the moment, there's a lot of work that goes into it. You've got live streams and all the promotion behind it. You've got John and Chris doing all the sort of stuff in the background of it as well, with all the data sorting and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of things go into it. So to do separate ones for media would be quite difficult. I'm not going to lie about that. However, I do feel that the way that we're doing it now is potentially the better way of doing it. I can understand why you would want to know, you know, for example, who the top 5 figures from the Phantom Menace that everybody would want. But I think the way we do it right now is that, you know, if you do want a Phantom Menace figure and enough people want that figure, then they're going to vote for him and he will end up in the top 10. So the cream does kind of rise to the top. I think if you offered Hasbro the data of, you know, just the Phantom Menace, that may skew the results ever so slightly. You would get a lot of people voting, but if you were to say, you know, this figure gets a slot over this other figure, then that might sort of skew the results a little bit. I think the way we're doing it right now is a good way of doing it, because we offer all of the data afterwards. You can say, look, here's the top 10 that made it and here's the winner, but also here's the top 50, and in that top 50 there is going to be some Phantom Menace and some Knights of the Old Republic, and they can actually see how high versus the other medias, you know, they fit in. Basically, what I wouldn't want to happen is for them to make a figure from Andor, for example, that gets voted a lot because we're only doing Andor, and then it's like a dud, because versus something else, it's not actually that wanted, if that makes sense. Gert van Hoivert says, "Hi Tim, question for next week. With all the collectors collecting card backs, do you think Hasbro would ever just release card backs on their own without the figures? or maybe get a second card back with each figure so the figure can be removed and you can still have an untouched card back. Love to hear your thoughts on this. Great job as always, and keep up the good work. Greetings from Belgium. I'm not too sure if that's something they would do. I can understand why you're asking it. I think if people want them carded, then they also want the figure on the card. And then obviously loose collectors just want the figure and will either throw away the card or for some strange reason keep it. I keep them, by the way. However, they have, done this sort of thing before, proof cards. And they've given them out at things like conventions, San Diego Comic Con, things like that. And I think that's probably the way to do that. If you're going to, give some freebies away or something like that, they should stick to that sort of thing, really. I think if you're including with the figure, it's just an excuse for them to push the price up even more, which we don't want. Terry Light says, question for next week. With the topic regarding the Ghost Crew pipeline last week, do you think Hasbro will release the Sabine and Chopper with Rebel Cave Art cardbacks at the same time as the Ghost shipping? And do you think they will be a 2-pack release? I had the question about the 2-pack before, and the more and more I think about this, I think that they will do a 2-pack. Not only from a logistics point of view, but also as a way of making you buy both. But I'm pretty sure everyone would want both anyway, but it's a surefire way of making you buy both. Will they get it out in time for the Ghost? I would hope that is something that they're aiming to do. As essentially when you get the Ghost, then those figures also ship at roughly the same time. I hope that's the case anyway. I would have thought that that's something that's on their mind to make sure that happens. Jesse Carter and Omando, I think that's your name, says, Bossk, question for next week. How would you feel if Hasbro got the most out of the world building by making accessory packs like we used to get years ago? This is the world building scale, and it'd be great to make use of all the molds of the glasses, the bottles, and things like the crates from the Rogue One tank, and weapons and such from all of the deluxe packs. I think it's definitely something that they should look at. I mean, I've put this here. This is, I guess this constitutes as a accessory pack. You get a bit of the bar and some cups and things like that with Momar Nadon, good old hammerhead there. And if you've got the other ones, they all clip together and you can make the cantina bar and what have you. I know in this line you could get other ones. I think there was quite a good one with lots of like Ewok village bits and bobs and stuff like that. I think it's definitely something that they should explore. I think more and more people are becoming loose collectors and setting up little dioramas. They're giving us things like the Jabba's Palace up there. So I think, as a way of getting extra bits for your other dioramas that didn't come with them, it's a good thing to do. Maybe they'll do it in the future. We'll have to wait and see. Alfred Pedneu says, question for next week. How many years do you think it'll take to get to VC 500? Okay, so I did a bit of research on this and had a look what we got this year, and we roughly got about 50 different figures with different numbers on, basically. So if you take that going forward, if it stays the same, then it'll take 4 years to do 200, if my maths correct, 50 per year. We're roughly at around 300, 308, something like that at the moment. So yeah, so roughly about 4 years to get to VC 500. It's amazing, isn't it, really? When you think about all the figures that we've had this year, many of them are, or some of them are reissues, so they retain the number. Some of them are in 4-packs, like, the loose figures in 4-packs. But carded figures with new numbers is roughly about 50 or so. I think we got a few more this year than we did in 2002. So, but not by many, by 2 or 3 or something like that. Paul Nurse says, hi Tim, obscure question for next week. I bought the Blue Milk VC book and I love it, but how about Hasbro producing a collection booklet or poster like the old Kenner ones, but something that is a homage to the marketing posters and booklets we used to get back in the 80s? A mail away perhaps, but as we don't get free figures anymore with 5 purchases, something to reward the loyal collectors. Thoughts? Top job, appreciate all you do. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, about things like this. I would love for them to do mail aways again. That would be something to sort of, make their line even more exciting. They have done like posters and stuff, but they, again, like the proof cards, it's something that they've given away at like conventions and stuff like that. And they were pretty awesome, actually, the posters that they did. They were of the sort of box art of some of the vehicles, like the barge and the speeder bike and things like that. I did manage to pick up some of those myself with some help from some friends overseas as well from SDCC. So yeah, maybe it's that sort of thing that you're going to get, that's those posters and freebies, rather than with like certain amount of purchases. But I do think it's something they should look into, just to get even more sales, basically. And as you say, reward collectors who who buy everything. This is No Cave says, question for next week. Hasbro's acknowledgement and celebration of the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi in both TVC and the Black Series exceeded a lot of collectors' expectations, and the TVC side of the team seems to recognise that these milestones are important to 3.75 inch figure collectors. We've already gotten some figure announcements that indicate Hasbro will acknowledge the 25th anniversary of the Phantom Menace in 2024 in the Black Series, but 2024 will also mark the 20th anniversary of the Vintage Original Trilogy collection, which was the precursor to TVC as we know it. Hasbro has already confirmed that at least 4 characters in the TVC pipeline reveal that were part of that 2004 VOTC lineup: Vader, Stormtrooper, R2-D2 and Leia. Do you think Hasbro is planning on formally acknowledging the 20th anniversary of Vintage, as Hasbro took to calling it in the mid-2000s? This could be a very positive development in the whole Make the Mains movement from A New Hope. Yeah, I'm not too sure if they're aware of the 20th anniversary or not. I think the Vader, Stormtrooper, R2 and Leia wave could be a happy coincidence. You never know though. In terms of the Phantom Menace and the Black Series, that again is going to be one of my questions on the Hasbro Q&A on Tuesday. I will be asking them, you know, the Phantom Menace anniversary is being recognised in the Black Series, you know, are we going to get some kind of mini beat or something in TVC? And we'll see what they have to say. You know, they might come back with, at the moment we can't announce anything, blah blah blah, or they might be nice and they might say we can't tell you what it is, but we'll definitely be giving you something from the Phantom Menace. But we'll have to wait and see on the answer to my questions. Alright then guys, that's it for this week's episode of Ask Bossk Bounty. As I mentioned before, if you do have a question for next week's episode, which will be episode 200, can't believe I've done 200 of these. That is, you know, quite astounding really that I've managed to do that. I appreciate everybody that takes part every week, every question. Really do appreciate it. Leave your questions for next week's episode and I will read some of them out if I do it live, and also make sure if I am doing it live to join in and ask questions in the chat as we go. I want to thank everybody for watching this video, and thank you to my Patreon supporters and channel members for supporting me and my channel in the way that you do. It is greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching everybody, and we shall see you on the next one.